Hi, everybody. I brought another guest to you, a really valuable, wonderful woman called Esther Althaus. And Esther is an award, for those that don't know her, many of you probably do, but Esther's an award winning financial advisor and has built her business up over 15 years. She started at a time when she saw an absolute need to be a career woman as a result of the breakdown of her marriage, the need to support her three beautiful, beautiful girls, and I can attest to their absolute gorgeousness. They are beautiful inside and out with the most gorgeous values and behavior that I've seen in young ladies. So well done to you for
Thank
that.
you. Thank you. And thank you for
Yeah,
having me.
it's our pleasure. So Esther, there's so much that I really want to ask you. Let's start with, as you went through your career, what were the biggest challenges that you faced?
Well, I started my career when my children were quite young. So there was always the challenge of juggling motherhood
Mm,
and and the career. I had to really balance both and give equal time to both because they were both equally important. My career was going to be the opportunity for us to live a life of security. But at
mm.
the same time, the children, when they were younger, had needs that I had to attend to. And I really had to learn how to hold myself back and not expect too much of myself at a time when my priorities were such that my children really needed me to physically be there.
Well, that's really interesting because so much of us do expect too much of ourselves. Did you ever expect too much of yourself, and then what happened as a result?
I did because I used to compare myself to other people and I would look at what they were doing and I'd
Mm,
say, well, I should be doing that. I've been practicing now for 2 years or 5 years or 10 years. And why aren't I doing what they're doing?
mm,
And
mm.
then I would
I
stop
know that
myself.
well. Mm.
Yeah. And then I would stop myself and I would say, look, why am I comparing myself to those people? They don't live my life. I don't live their lives. So, I have to just do the best that I can within my own framework. So, once I stopped comparing myself to other people and really made myself my only competitor, then it did take the pressure off.
That's a lot of wisdom for someone so young in such a vulnerable position. So, do you remember how that you came to that realization? Was it because of the pain you were in as a result of comparing, or did something happen, or it just evolved?
I think it was really just my way of, giving myself an excuse about why I didn't achieve certain milestones that I thought I would have at different points. Also, I'm not a perfectionist. So
That helps.
yes, so I like to pay attention to detail, and particularly in my career, you have to know your information and you have to be detailed. But at the same time, I'm I'm glad I'm not a perfectionist. So the pressure of always doing things to absolute perfection in every aspect of my life wasn't there. So I was able to manage myself and really just, I had to be cognitive of what are my limitations at a given point in time and realize that there is a time for everything and the time will come that I'll be able to do this or I'll be able to do
Mm,
that.
that's
But I have to
amazing.
be patient. I have to crawl before I walk. I have to walk before I run. So now I'm in a bit of a running phase, but that's because the other areas of my life are now taking care of itself.
That's amazing. That's already so much valuable information that you put in that 1 minute there.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So I've always perceived you as someone really, really confident.
Yeah.
Bubbly goes without saying. Anyone that knows Esther knows you're going to get good value if you spend time with her. But did this confidence, I mean, you've mentioned not that long ago, I heard you speak, and I was like, oh, really? She didn't always have this inner self esteem and this inner confidence. So, how did that come about?
Um, I know I do come across as very confident, and because I'm loud and I'm pretty chilled and easygoing, and I try not to take life too seriously. But there were times that I questioned my ability in a lot of different aspects of my life and throughout my life. And I think what happened was I looked like I was more confident when I was younger, and then as you get older and you understand the responsibilities of being an adult, then I started to question my own confidence about things. But having said that, I had to also learn pretty quickly that if I don't develop a sense of confidence, if I don't believe in my own good judgment, then I'll have too many people around me making decisions that are not necessarily in my best interest because they've got their own agendas, and that I have to learn pretty quickly to, make decisions, be confident about my decisions, and believe in myself.
Right. And do you recall any instances where you had to learn that lesson as, something happened that taught you?
I think the first time that I learnt to believe in myself, and I didn't realise this till later on in life when it just popped into my mind or I was reflecting, was actually when I was in school, because I wasn't a particularly strong student, although I did have an ability for maths. And we were streamed, and in year 7, year 8, I was put into a lower class, and I started to do very well. My reports were excellent, and of course I did very well because it came naturally to me, so it was very easy. By the end of about year 9, I think that's when my ego sort of caught up with me, and I said to myself, do you know what, I'm sick of being in this lower grade. And then we were very politically incorrect, and we call it the dummy class. I didn't want to be in the dummy class anymore, and I went, approached the school, and I said, I don't want to be in that class, I want to be in the higher class. And they said, well, you don't know half the curriculum, you're going to need to teach it to yourself or learn it by the time school starts. I said, that's fine, I'll do it. And I did. I taught myself in the school holidays.
Amazing at year 9.
I know. When I think back, I think I actually showed some initiative then. Wow. Because I was always written off as Esther's lazy. She doesn't try hard enough. We should hold her back. She's just not getting it. And so I started to believe that. I believed that about myself till one day I just said, no, I'm going to see what I can do. I did teach it to myself. I went into the higher class, and by the end of year 12, there was only myself and one other girl in that higher level of maths. So did I suddenly get smarter? What happened that put me there? And, that was the first time that I said, you know what, I don't care what you think. I'm going to believe in myself. And I did it. Then life just took me on a different journey, and I forgot about that. And I forgot to believe in myself. And I'm a real Aussie. She'll be right. She'll be right. And you just do, you just follow what everybody else is doing, easygoing. And then at some point, things weren't quite right.
Right.
Yeah.
And then what happened as far as judgment is concerned, because you're saying you forgot to believe in yourself, which leads me to think that when you forget to believe in yourself, you're open to believing other people and what they say about you and how they're looking at you. And you probably also, as a young mum who did have the breakdown of her marriage, you probably had a lot of that in your life.
Right. So I think that some of it came from myself. I self-projected onto myself a greater sense of judgment than what was really happening. But there were times when I was judged as well. So I got married when I was 20. I was heading to divorce by 30. You don't make a decision once you've got 3 little children just to end a marriage so quickly. So the process for me was over a number of years. But when I actually came out publicly with the end of the marriage, I did get a lot of judgment. I had a lot of people contacting me from around the world who I didn't even know, giving me opinions about what they thought I should do and how I should bring up my children. And I just, I just said to myself, you know what, I'm not going to be angry, because in their minds, I'm sure they're doing this because they think they're doing the right thing and they're trying to help me. Obviously, it didn't make a difference because I knew what was right for me. And ultimately, I just had to pursue without caring about the judgment, because effectively what I did say to myself is, no one goes to sleep at night caring about me and my children. I do.
That's it. You've blown me away with your wisdom, Esther, because it takes a lifetime for some people to learn what you seem to have. I know that you work towards this, but you seem to have it so naturally that I'm not going to get angry. Gosh, if people were calling me from overseas to tell me how to run my life when I don't even know them, I don't know. Maybe I'd get angry, So is that a natural state for you not being angry, and how does that work in your life?
I try not to be angry. I mean, there's things that get to me, and I don't really want to use bad language in this.
Go for it. Express yourself, Esther.
Well, there are things that piss me off.
Yeah,
but at the same time, I realise that, it's not worth it. I don't want to be angry. I don't want to spend the precious time I have being distracted by anger. I mean, there are a lot of different things that happened throughout my life where I could have said, you know what, I'm really angry and I'm hurt and I'm disappointed. But I thought, you know, what's the point? Is that going to make me, is being angry going to make me feel better? No. So I deal with it. I learn from it. That's something that I really try to do is what can I do different that will prevent me from being in that same situation? Or how did I get there in the first place? And when we talk about anger, I mean, often when I reflect on different things that I have been angry about, it hasn't really been at other people and what other people have done. It's really at myself. So if I was angry at my kids, why was I angry at them? Because I expected something from them that was too much for them to be able to do at that point in time. I didn't manage my expectations. I'm very much a believer in managing expectations. And if you manage your own expectations and you help people around you to manage expectations that they have of you, and if you're not too hard on yourself, then you realize where's that anger really coming from. So just for example, getting back to those people, um, I chose to believe that they were really trying to help me. So I didn't get angry. Could I have? Yes. Could I have told them it's none of their business? Flat out, what do you know about my life? You don't even know what I look like. You wouldn't know me if you walked past me on the street. And it's even outrageous thinking about that that's what people did. But it's not worth being angry.
I love your language around what you're saying. I chose to believe. Now, anybody who knows me knows that I that I really believe in that whole concept of choice, and that's where we have free choice. Get angry or not get angry. Well, it doesn't serve me, so I'm not going to get angry. And I love how you just phrased that whole. I think that anybody listening to this should rewind and repeat a few times the last few minutes of what you've just been saying, because that is just so valuable. You made choices to live a life that's good for you, and having expectations of others, and that's why you're not getting angry. I love that. That's so totally up my alley, and really the way that people, if you want to live a life with less anger, with more calm, with more peace in the house, particularly how you mentioned your children, that perhaps you had expectations of them and you've turned the anger towards yourself. And very, very often when we are angry, I do believe that if we look at what's going on, it's about us. It's got nothing to do with the other person's behavior, which we cannot control.
Exactly. So that's the point. I can't control someone else's behavior, but I can control how I react.
Respond.
And
yes.
Either react or respond.
Yes.
And so, it's all about choice. And that's really how I'm trying to live my life through my career, through the way I raise my kids. It's about how do I live my life in a way that I even have choice. And in Australia, living here in this community, we are very, very lucky because we have so many choices we don't realize we have. But, I'm trying to secure myself so that I can have, even more choices. And so it's choices about, there's how I live my life from the tangible things I have in my life, but also just my attitude to my life, because I want to walk around, I want to be healthy minded, excuse me, I want to be happy. And I'm a firm believer that happiness really is a choice.
And it's an inside job, not an external job.
Absolutely. I mean, yes, there are a lot of people that carry anger for various things, and I think that I don't have a psychological background. This is just my opinion.
Oh, I reckon you probably do give it a life experience.
Okay, well, so it's unofficial. But, if you want to be angry and be destructive of everything around you, does that ultimately really help you heal? Or do you say, I can't control the environment around me, but I can choose to look at things differently, sort of do a reconciliation about things that have gone on in your life, and then look forward and influence the people around you with a much better attitude.
Beautifully said. Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you for that. Thank you.
you.
Okay, so I wanted to ask you also what's
Sure.
coming up for me is you moved from being a mother of 3 children,
Yes.
and then into an award-winning financial advisor. I'm sure that didn't go like water for you so smoothly and easily. When you came across challenges, you were doing something completely new. You were going out of, and also remember, this is going back, 15 years.
Yeah.
15 years, the world wasn't as modern and as accepting of particularly the world that you live in the community that you live in. When challenges. What was it that came? How did you step into, do things so different? How did you cope with the probable fears that came up as you did new things?
So at the time, I didn't think of them as fearsome. I think when you reflect back and you say, wow, you did this, you studied, you put yourself here, you put yourself there, nothing happened, overnight. It was all a slow build up. So even though I've had my business for 15 years, my career pathway started now nearly 22 years ago. So I had my third daughter. I realized things were not good. I need to have some sort of career because I wasn't encouraged to go to university and get an education. And for me, education or continuing my education was very overwhelming because I was always told that I was so bad at it. So when my youngest daughter was born, I was 26. And when she was 1 month old, I thought, right, I'm not really working much now. I'm working part-time. I'm going to start studying. So I went on a train with her, took her in the stroller. We went to the stock exchange because I always had an interest in finance and registered through the Securities Institute for my first course, one subject. I thought, I'm going to do one subject because I don't know how I'm going to be at this. Can I write an essay? Who knows what I'm going to have to do? I've got the kids. I did the one subject and I did surprisingly well. And I thought, 1 second, my English teachers failed every single essay of mine, and suddenly I'm getting credits and distinctions for writing pieces. What's happened? And so slowly that shaped my confidence, and I actually just didn't give myself a choice. I said to myself, I don't have a choice about this. I need a career. I need to get my studies done. And when I realized that financial advising was the career that I was going to commit to, I really just committed to it and said, right, this has to work for me. I can't keep changing all the time. I have to find something that resonates. And I'm very fortunate because I did find something early that resonated with me. And I'm going to commit myself to that pathway and this is going to be it.
It's amazing, terrific. But I'm sure you weren't always in your comfort zone.
No, I wasn't in my comfort zone, but you just have to face your fears. I didn't have a choice. You just got to do it. I mean, it's my way of dealing with things often is just do it. Like, you just do it.
Just do it. It's brilliant.
Just do it. Just do it. So I did. I mean, when I started working, a very male-dominated environment. So I was just, the little girl, and then these older men. It was also very, very much dominated by men who were older. Right. So they were trying to bring some younger people into it, but there was even still today, there is still a big gap and a lot of older people in the advice industry. So that was interesting, but I've always felt comfortable. I've always been one of the boys, so that wasn't so terrible.
Too much of an out of comfort zone for you.
Okay, but still, it just, you know what? It's different it's one thing in a social environment, but in a professional environment, when you're not quite seeing yourself as a professional, and then there you are, and all these men in their suits. So that was one uncomfortable point. Otherwise, aside from that, I haven't really been in too many places where I've been really out of my comfort zone because I've just said I'm just not going to be intimidated, and maybe my personality type is not to be so easily intimidated, and you just go and do it.
Just go and do it.
Just go and do it.
And for those people who do find themselves, in order to go and do it, they need to get out of their comfort zone. What would you say to them?
I think people have to stop making excuses for themselves. If something is really important, and if you're verbalizing it, if you're thinking it and you're verbalizing it, then you've got to act on it. And if there's something holding you back, and if it is a matter of, well, it's out of my comfort zone, so what, So if it's important to you, find a way to deal with it. Because if you make excuses, all you're doing is you're wasting time. You are not role modeling the people around you who you influence in the healthiest way. Because the best way that you can role model people and be a leader, and even if you're a mum, you're a leader.
Absolutely.
And it's
so true.
Yeah. So if you want to role model, the best is by taking action and by people seeing what you're doing. That's it. You can talk the talk, but until you're doing it, you're not you're not really demonstrating any particular leadership skills. But you have to understand about yourself as well. What is the reason that's holding you back? Why are you scared? What is it? And that's a whole separate. We could probably do a whole session on
fears.
On fear.
Yeah, the 3 universal fears,
That's right.
Which we really all share in a different expression.
That's right. And what's the worst thing that can happen in most situations? You're not going to die. You're not going to
fail, Esther.
Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. There's no such thing as failure.
There's only feedback.
There's feedback.
Actually, you mentioned that to me once. That whole issue of that when I make a mistake or when I'm worried about something going wrong, I learn from it. I rather than get mad or upset, I take it and I run. Put it in your own words.
Right. So there are definitely times that I could have done something differently. Absolutely. But the fact is, whatever happened, happened. So I can beat myself up about it, or I can say, all right, this thing happened. Why did it happen? Did I allow it to happen? Do I have a choice? Back to choice.
Yeah.
Do I have a choice, or can I learn a lesson about it that will help me to make a different choice about how I handle that situation if I'm faced with the same situation again? So I'm not going to keep beating myself up over something, but I am human. I make mistakes. I've had poor judgment, but I can't change things that have happened. I can just say, all right, what have I learned? What should I do differently? Why did I do some of the things that I did? How did it come about? And, I think really we can beat ourselves up. We can do guilt. I don't do guilt. Not too much guilt.
Wow, you're a Jewish mama and you don't do guilt.
Yeah, I keep saying it's because I'm one step further removed from, the children of Holocaust survivors. So I'm that one generation away. So the guilt is just sort of phasing out. Yeah, so...
Well, yeah. I'm learning what seems to be so natural for you. For me, it was always lie in bed and recount the day, or even in the middle of the night, what I had said, what I had done would come and play on my mind, and I would feel perhaps guilt over something. I'm really at a place now where what's come natural to you is beginning to happen to me, where I really can actually remove and say, okay, what can I learn from this and grow from this, and really treat perhaps a mistake, an error, whatever you want to call it, a failure, as a feedback for growth and a stepping stone. Literally, okay, I slipped, so I'm going to step up and learn how to do that better or not to do that again, or whatever it is.
So how I would word that is guilt is a negative thing. And I think guilt holds you back from growing from the experience. So I'd say rather than saying that I felt guilt, it's I take responsibility.
Beautiful.
Okay?
Yeah.
So if something is genuinely my fault and I understand that I caused something, then I need to take responsibility to see what I can do to rectify it. Okay?
Yeah.
So then if you take that healing pathway, then you shouldn't really have to have guilt. I mean, if you analyze what you're feeling guilty about, are you creating something in your mind that doesn't exist? Number one. Number two, yes. Are you really guilty of something? Because if you're thinking about it, maybe you did say something to someone you shouldn't have said, or you expressed it in a way that didn't quite come out right, or you lashed out quickly, at one of your kids because there was something else on your mind. But you can't change what's happened, but you can own it. You can take responsibility for it. You can admit when you've made a mistake and grow from it. And that's one thing that I found, particularly in my career, that I'm in a relationship business. I'm not in a transactional business. So like any relationship, sometimes communication hasn't always been as effective as it needed to be, but that's okay. I've always found that if something's been brought to my attention, or I've needed to bring something to someone's attention, it's how I've gone about it. And if I go about it in a respectful, healthy way, we deal with it. It's a non-issue. We move on.
I would think that that's probably part of the recipe for your success, Esther, because if you look at what guilt does to us, it actually sets us further back and makes us recreate that behavior. Because if you're punishing yourself and you're feeling all of that negativity, then it's not going to make you grow and change. It's actually going to make you repeat the behavior again and again.
Yes.
Whereas doing what you do so beautifully is look at it, analyze it, say, okay, where am I responsible and how do I change that? How do I make that better? How do I behave in a way that's learned behavior and growth? And that's really, really beautiful. Thank
I
you.
don't always get it right, and I'm sure there are all sorts of people, including my own kids, who will get up and say, "Oh, Mum,"
especially your own kids.
Especially,
Yeah.
yes, they give me my best feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, I'm going to ask you a question about
Yeah.
that. All right. So your kids are now older and
Yes.
flying the coop actually to fantastic adventures that they've gone on. Absolutely. But when they were very, very little, and your hand was forced, and so I'm understanding that you were put, and guys, don't wait to be forced. Not, God forbid, comparing circumstances, but in these circumstances, if you have a desire to do something, then jump into that. That's a whole other topic. I just thought I'd say that. Don't wait to be forced, because life tends to force you if we wait for too long. So really, I'm asking a question around your little children. How did you manage that, and what was their reaction to mummy going out and becoming a career woman?
Well, I didn't ask them. They didn't have a choice. Yeah. They just had to deal with it. My kids were quite young when I transitioned. So it wasn't that I was one mother that looked a particular way, and now suddenly I'm a completely different person. One of the things that I tried very hard to do was to create a stable environment for my children, and I didn't want massive changes for them. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't going to be realistic for me to go and find a job that I had to leave home at 7:30, 8 in the morning and come back 6. Having said that, I would have done it. I would have, because I knew if that's what it took for me to build a career, I would have had to do it. But it would be very remiss of me not to acknowledge my family, that I did have good family support. And, I live with my family close by. They didn't do everything for me. It's not like I had my meals cooked and all of that. However, they were my parents, my mother in particular, was quite hands-on. And I remember the worst thing about working and having the kids was the school holidays. I used to hate school holidays. I used to hate school holidays. But now I don't even know when school holidays are. I notice that the traffic's a little lighter when I get to work. And I go, oh, must be school holidays. There you go. But so I did have good family support. And you have to also know, you have to let people help you and not be afraid to ask for help. So there were times when I would ring up my friends or my kids' friends' parents and say, look, I need a little bit of help. Can you help me? I think if we're too proud and we don't ask for help, we take on too much. We go through life. There is a time when there's always a time when sometimes we are the helpers and sometimes we need to be helped. Yeah. And in a way, I think that allowing other people to help us when we need help is actually a gift, because you're empowering other people to not always be the ones who are being helped, but to let them be the helpers. So I gave lots of people lots of opportunities to be helpers.
I think that's awesome.
And
that's
time.
Awesome.
The best thing is we can't control time. So over time, eventually these things sort themselves out. And then here we are.
Yeah. For all those mothers out there who perhaps don't have as much support as they really need, ask for it, and ask your friends, ask your family. Sometimes family's not even around. Ask your friends, ask complete strangers if you have to employ people. This is a whole topic within itself, because I can see all sorts of questions coming up over what I might have just said. But I think that's a beautiful message that you've shared. Thank you.
You're welcome. I can't change my reality, and I'm not going to apologize for what is my reality. But we all have different realities, and we have to learn to, I don't want to say take advantage in a bad way.
No,
but
absolutely. Use the resources that are out there. The
resources, exactly. Whether it's family, whether it's friends. Sometimes people have, are surrounded by family, but their family, are not in a position to help. But, excuse me, sometimes I think to myself, would my journey have been different if I didn't have the help? And yes, it would have been a different journey, but I believe that I would still be where I am, because I was determined that I'm not going to find excuses. I'm going to, okay, if that resource is not available, I will find a different resource, because I'm getting from A to B.
Well put, and I believe that too about you. and you have the right personality for that. But even if you don't have this natural personality that Esther seems to have, she fought for what she has. It didn't come, you know, by itself. She fought. She did the work and didn't listen to the excuses, and that's a huge one. Not making excuses, which we've all done at some point at some time, and it's okay to do that. If that's what you're doing and it's working for you, that's fine. But if you want something and the only way to get it is to stop BSing yourself, then go forth and stop BSing yourself. Yeah.
But Dusty, let me say that it didn't always come naturally.
Yeah.
And there's still moments where I doubt myself. I'm only human, and even till today, there are still things that I question from time to time. But I've got some really good friends who like to challenge me. But there were times, particularly when the kids were moving into their teenage years, where I really started to doubt my abilities and how to juggle everything and deal with the whole transition. But thank God we got through it.
I'm glad to hear you're human. Of course, we all have those universal fears. Some of us listen to them a little bit more than others, and some have learnt, and I continue to learn personally how to manage those fears. They're going to be there because we're human. Humans have them. That's just the way it is. We have the good, we have the bad. There's always that balance within us. There's nothing complete and whole positive. You've got to have the challenges, and it's how you manage those challenges, would you not say? And you've managed them beautifully.
Thank you.
I'm very proud of you.
Thank you. I'm proud of you too.
Thank you. All right, so just insofar as I think a last message for our wonderful mums on board here, insofar as finding your voice, finding your individuality in the world of judgment that we live in today.
Right. Okay. So I think you've known me for a very long time. So I think I've always been somebody who has been comfortable being myself. Okay. And I think it's like what I said before, is that no one lives my life. No one goes to sleep at night caring about me and my family more than I do. So if I really believe that what I am doing is in the best interest of us, then I have to filter, ignore what other people say, and just do what I believe in. I mean, I can't lie to myself, and where I really learnt that lesson I've got to say that my career has given me some amazing opportunities to be in some very healthy spaces and hear amazing presentations that are really empowering and have helped me focus on what are really the important things in life and takes me out of my, little community into the greater world to hear some amazing messages. So I was at a conference once, and it was already a number of years ago, and someone had got up, shared his story, which was tragic. He suffered a lot of abuse. He was from a minority background, and he just had a horrible life. But ultimately, he decided that he was going to take a certain pathway to get out of that cycle, and that he was going to live a completely different life than what was projected onto him and expected of him, because he was really made to feel that he would be worthless. And he quoted Eleanor Roosevelt, and he said, "What other people think of me is none of my business." And that was something that I thought, right, I'm putting that on my fridge, and that's how I'm going to live my life. What other people think of me is none of my business.
Beautiful.
That's it.
Put it on your fridge, guys. It's a fantastic message.
And I just thought, you know what? When I reflect back, again, I was telling you a little earlier that any time I believed what other people thought of me was when the not so nice things happened in my life. But every time I filtered and I said, I don't care what you think, and I don't believe what you think, I'm going to believe in myself, all the amazing opportunities came. So I'm very blessed because I had opportunities to learn that. And I had an opportunity to learn that when I was quite young. So, it didn't always come natural.
Yeah, thank you. That is just amazing and so very true. And it ties in with getting in touch with what your instincts are, who you are, not comparing yourself to other people, not caring what other people think of you, and doing what resonates best with you, whether it's parenting your child the way you want to parent your child, or whether it's doing in your case, a career and going off and doing your thing and how you educate. It's to do with everything. So thank you. That's a really important message.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I think that covers so many areas, and that's so much gold in a short time frame. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And guys, thank you so much. And if you've been listening, I hope you've had as much value from this discussion as I certainly have. And please comment and send Esther any message that you'd like to send, any question that you might have. I'm sure Esther will be really happy to reply to you. And thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
You're
right?
welcome. Good
Thank
luck.
you very, very much.
I've been following your group now for a little while, and I think that what you do is amazing. You bring so many pearls of wisdom, not just my wisdom, but a lot of different pearls of wisdom into a forum for people to access that wouldn't necessarily have the opportunities like I've had or that you've had to hear these messages that are out there in the world that are so inspiring and empowering. And I'll tell you that what frustrates me the most when I go to these seminars and professional development days where they bring in these sort of messages is I get very frustrated because there are so many people in my life who I wish would be sitting right there hearing it. And it always helps for me to hear it again and again. But yes, I'm hearing these messages, but I'm already adopted a lot of those things into my life. Yes. But so many other people would benefit, but who don't have the opportunity to be exposed to it and wouldn't even know where to start. So you're doing a wonderful job by bringing these messages.
Thank you. And Esther, if you ever go to a seminar and you think that's a brilliant topic for, our young mums to hear, come again, right? Okay. Come again and talk to us
With
again.
With pleasure.
It would be our pleasure. Thank you so very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Pleasure. See you later, everybody.